Thank you very much, Dr. Walensky. I'd like to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about the subject of the potential role of vaccinations that we are currently giving in handling the variants that we see emerging in our society. Can I have the first slide? This is a slide which schematically diagrams the immune response to SARS-CoV-2. On the left-hand part of the slide is what happens when you get acutely infected. Multiple components of the immune response are operative. Antibodies, but also something we don't pay much attention to, and that is the cell-mediated response of what's called CD4 and CD8 cells. On the right-hand part of the slide is what happens when you recover, which is the state you try to mimic when you vaccinate an individual. In other words, you want to induce immune memory in the form of antibodies, CD4 and CD8 positive T cells, or what we call cell-mediated immunity, as well as memory B cells. Next slide. So what I want to talk about in the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes is that the immune protection against COVID-19 variants, which is of obvious concern to us, when you are vaccinated against a wild-type viral strain, namely the common virus in society. There are two potential mechanisms that protect you against variants. One, a high titer of antibody that, although it's specific against the wild-type strain, it is high enough that there's a spillover effect against the variant. And the second, which I'd like to emphasize right now, is the T cell response that, although it's specific against the wild-type strain, there's a considerable degree of cross-reactivity against a range of variants, which is characteristic of T cells. This slide here shows the high level of antibody against a prime and a boost of the Pfizer vaccine. The point I was making a moment ago is that that level is so high that even when you diminish it by multifold, which is the case with the variant, you still have a good degree of protection. Next slide. But the other thing that we want to concentrate on is that now we're learning more and more that these CD4 and CD8 cells are very important in that they cross-react against certain viral variants, and they last for a long time. Next slide. This slide is in individuals who are actually infected, showing that immune memory response lasts for several months, but it also includes, besides antibody, what I mentioned, the very important T cells, which can help against the variants. Next slide. When you look at vaccinated individuals, as shown on this slide, you get T cell memory response again against the variants, not only against the virus to which you were vaccinated against, but as shown in this report, against a number of variants. Next slide. And finally, in a paper that came out just yesterday, it was shown very clearly that in individuals who recover from infection, if you look at their CD4 and CD8 positive T cells, they recognize virtually all of the variants of concern. So on the final slide, next slide, getting back to what I said in the beginning, we are seeing now immune protection against COVID-19 variants when individuals are vaccinated against the wild-type strain on two mechanisms: the antibody response that has a spillover effect, as well as the cross-reactivity. The bottom line message to everyone is why it's so important to get vaccinated, because vaccination is not only going to protect us against the wild type, but it has the potential to a greater or lesser degree to also protect against a range of variants. So when vaccination becomes available, get vaccinated. Back to you, Andy.